A deer lowers its head to drink from a river. For 3 seconds, the forest is silent. Then, almost imperceptibly, its ears rotate. Its muscles tighten before its eyes do. Its head rises. Nothing has appeared. Nothing has moved. And yet something deep inside the animal has already decided the world has changed. A gust of wind. A broken branch. A scent carried through the trees. Whatever it noticed, the deer cannot afford to ignore it. Most of the time, it will be wrong. The forest will return to silence. The danger will exist only inside its nervous system. But every so often, it won't. And the deer that reacted too early will survive. The one that waited for certainty will not. Most people believe fear exists because the world is dangerous. That isn't entirely true. Fear exists because certainty arrives too late. Hold on to that sentence. It's about to explain something you do every single morning without ever noticing. This morning, you probably locked your front door. You may not even remember doing it. It happened automatically, a movement so ordinary it barely entered your awareness. Here's the strange part. You didn't invent that habit. Neither did your parents. Or their parents. The instinct reaches back far beyond cities, far beyond written history, to a time when the boundary between safety and death was a thin line of branches around a sleeping family. Today, a locked door protects laptops and televisions. For your ancestors, that same barrier protected children. Food. Fire. The future of an entire bloodline. The action stayed exactly the same. Only the threat changed costume. We like to believe civilization erased our ancient fears. Steel replaced wood. Concrete replaced caves. Streetlights replaced moonlight. So why do so many people living inside the safest century in human history still feel like something is about to go wrong? That contradiction is where this story actually begins. Researchers studying the brain found something that should unsettle you. When people are shown emotionally charged images inside a scanner, the regions built to detect threats fire before the regions responsible for conscious reasoning even wake up. Your conscious mind likes to believe it's the one making the decisions. Often, it's just receiving a memo, after the machinery has already decided how your body should react. That machinery is older than language, older than agriculture, older than civilization itself. Long before humans asked philosophical questions about the meaning of life, their nervous systems were answering a far blunter one. Am I safe? Not once, not twice, thousands of times a day. Every rustling bush, every unfamiliar face, every silence that lasted a little too long. The individuals who ignored those signals disappeared from history without leaving descendants. The cautious ones became your ancestors. Which means, right now, you are running someone else's survival code. Here's where the story turns unsettling. Most people imagine evolution as a process that rewards accuracy, a system slowly perfecting organisms that see reality exactly as it is. It isn't. Nature has no interest in accuracy. Nature cares about survival, and those two things are not the same. Picture footsteps outside your shelter 80,000 years ago. You have two options. Assume it's the wind, and if you're wrong, you may never wake up. Assume it's a threat, and if you're wrong, you lose a little sleep. Evolution ran that calculation for millions of years and landed on one brutal conclusion. Better to panic unnecessarily than stay calm one time too many. You inherited that conclusion, not because the world is always dangerous, but because uncertainty itself became dangerous. That single principle is hiding behind almost every survival reflex you have. It's why a sudden noise hijacks your thoughts. Why your eyes snap toward movement before you decide to look. Why bad news outruns good news every time. You don't experience reality first. You experience a prediction, and by the time you notice, it's already made up its mind about you. There's an illusion most modern people are quietly living inside. The belief that safety is a destination. Graduate. Get the job. Earn enough. Buy the house. Install better locks. Save for retirement. Then, finally, relax. History keeps interrupting that plan. Every generation has believed it stood at the edge of permanent security. Then came famine, war, disease, collapse, disaster. The names changed. The uncertainty didn't. Your brain noticed this long before civilization did. Absolute safety doesn't exist. Only shifting probabilities. Maybe that's why people in quiet, peaceful neighborhoods still wake at 3 a.m. replaying conversations that haven't happened, bracing for problems that don't exist yet. The threats went psychological. The machinery never got the memo. For nearly all of human existence, feeling completely safe would have been one of the most dangerous emotional states a person could enter. A person who believed nothing could go wrong stopped listening, stopped preparing. Complacency was rarely punished immediately. It was punished eventually, sometimes generations later. Natural selection has extraordinary patience. It doesn't eliminate mistakes overnight. It quietly removes the organisms that repeat them, which raises an uncomfortable possibility. What if the restless feeling that follows you through modern life, the quiet sense that something might be wrong even when everything looks fine, isn't a flaw in your mind at all? What if it's one of evolution's greatest achievements? To understand why, we have to go back to the world that built this machinery in the first place. And that world was far more hostile than most of us can imagine. Imagine waking before sunrise. The air is cold enough to sting your lungs. A small fire in front of you has almost died. Beyond its fading light, only darkness. No streetlights. No locked doors. No emergency number to call. No guarantee the people sleeping beside you will be alive tomorrow. For almost all of human history, this wasn't a nightmare. It was a Tuesday. We tend to picture prehistoric life as one long battle against wild animals, every shadow hiding a predator. The archaeological evidence tells a stranger story. Yes, lions, hyenas, leopards, venomous snakes. But the greatest threat was rarely teeth. It was uncertainty, a river that dried up, a wound that turned septic, a winter that arrived early, a hunt that failed, a stranger whose intentions you couldn't read. And evolution almost never punished a single mistake. It punished patterns, one careless decision, followed by another, until survival quietly became impossible. So the human brain developed a strange new habit. It stopped asking, "Is there danger?" It started asking, "What danger haven't I noticed yet?" Those two questions built two completely different species of mind. You inherited the second one. Look around the room you're in right now. Your eyes aren't recording reality. They're filtering it before you're even aware of looking. A face, a doorway, a distant engine. If your ancestors had needed to consciously analyze every movement around them, they wouldn't have lived long enough to think about it. And here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Your brain doesn't wait for complete information before it acts. It builds reality out of fragments, sound, light, memory, expectation, and quietly fills in the gaps. Most of the time, the guess is astonishingly good. Sometimes, it's spectacularly wrong. A jacket on a hook becomes a person in the dark. Your name gets called in a crowded cafe that never said it. Your phone vibrates in your pocket, and it didn't. Your senses aren't cameras. They're storytellers. And survival has always preferred a convincing story over a perfectly accurate one, because waiting for certainty has always been expensive and sometimes fatal. Picture rustling in tall grass 70,000 years ago. You can't see what caused it. Wind, a small animal, or something that ends your life in seconds. Investigate every sound, and you burn irreplaceable energy. Ignore every sound, and eventually one of them kills you. Nature's solution wasn't accuracy. It was a bias, a brain built to lean toward caution, not because caution feels good, but because caution wins, statistically, across enough generations. This is one of evolution's least flattering truths. Your brain was never built to show you the world as it is. It was built to show you the version most likely to keep you alive. Usually those two overlap. Sometimes they don't. And your brain has no interest in telling you which is which. This is also why fear is contagious. Picture two members of an ancient tribe. One flinches at a harmless shadow and runs. The other shrugs off every shadow as nothing. One occasionally looks foolish. The other occasionally becomes dinner. Across enough generations, only one of those strategies keeps producing descendants. Nature doesn't reward bravery. It rewards survival, and bravery only earns its keep when it happens to serve it. Which might explain something stranger. Why humans have always told stories about monsters, ghosts, demons, things lurking just past the firelight. Psychologists have floated an uncomfortable theory. Maybe those stories were never really about the monster. Maybe they were training simulations, a way of teaching the next generation that the dark deserves respect, whether or not anything is actually in it. The story survived because the behavior it produced kept people alive. Whether the monster was real was never really the point. Then something changed everything. Roughly a few 100,000 years ago, our ancestors learned to control fire. On the surface, a technological win, warmth, cooked food, a predator deterrent. Psychologically, it did something far bigger. For the first time, humans built a boundary between the known and the unknown. Inside the circle of light, faces, food, children, stories. Outside it, the same darkness that had always been there. Fire didn't eliminate uncertainty. It pushed it back a few meters and called that progress. That small circle became humanity's very first illusion of safety. And arguably, every house, every city, every nation built since has just been an attempt to drag that circle a little wider. No matter how large it grew, the dark never actually left. It just waited at the edge, patiently, the way it still does. Today our campfires have become apartment buildings, security cameras, passwords, insurance policies, vaccines, airbags, smoke detectors. Each one solved a real problem. Each one made life measurably safer. And yet, anxiety hasn't disappeared. Sleepless nights haven't disappeared. That low hum of something could still go wrong hasn't disappeared either. Because those inventions changed the environment. They never touched the nervous system interpreting it. The machinery in your skull still can't fully tell the difference between a lion in the grass and an unanswered email that might contain bad news. To your conscious mind, those are nothing alike. To the ancient circuitry underneath it, both are just uncertainty, and uncertainty demands attention, full stop, no exceptions. Which leads somewhere uncomfortable. Maybe modern humans aren't living with too much fear. Maybe we're living with an ancient brain that still believes it's standing in a wilderness that vanished thousands of years ago and hasn't been told the good news. Imagine walking a familiar forest path at dusk. You've walked it dozens of times. The wind moves gently. Nothing feels unusual. Then, without warning, your pace slows. No sound. No shape between the trees. No actual evidence anything is wrong. And yet a quiet feeling settles over you. The forest suddenly feels different. Most people would call this instinct a mysterious sixth sense. Neuroscience says something stranger is going on. Your brain isn't reacting to danger. It's predicting it. Billions of neurons are comparing this exact moment. The angle of the shadows, the silence of the birds, the smell on the wind, the rhythm of your own footsteps, against a lifetime of stored experience. Almost none of it reaches your awareness. Your conscious mind only gets the headline. Something feels off. Not because your brain has seen danger. Because it detected a pattern that doesn't quite match what it expected to find. You're not walking through a forest. You're walking through a machine constantly trying to see the future. And right now, it's telling you something you can't yet explain. For centuries, we assumed the brain worked like a camera. Light in, image recorded, reaction follows. Recent research says the opposite. Your brain doesn't passively observe the world. It actively constructs it, generating predictions every second and quietly checking them against incoming reality. Most of the time, the match is close enough that you never notice the process running underneath. But when reality breaks the prediction, your attention snaps toward it instantly. The sudden movement at the edge of your vision, the silence that follows a loud room, a face that looks almost familiar but isn't. For millions of years, a broken prediction often meant survival depended on what happened in the next second. Your brain still treats every surprise like it might be that important. You're not simply seeing the world. You're constantly guessing it, and mostly forgetting that's what you're doing. That guessing ability quietly built civilization. Picture an early human tracking an antelope across dry ground with no fresh footprints, just broken twigs and faint disturbances in the grass. Most animals would give up. Humans didn't. They imagined where the antelope was going before they could see it, and then acted as if that imagined future were already real. Anthropologists call this one of our species' single greatest advantages, the ability to build a future inside the mind and move as though it already exists. That same trick eventually produced agriculture, cities, mathematics, medicine, spacecraft. Every bridge assumes tomorrow arrives. Every planted seed assumes another season. Civilization is, in a sense, prediction made physical. But evolution never hands out a superpower for free. This one came with a price tag attached, and the price is the rest of this story. The same brain that imagines success also imagines failure. The same mind that plans tomorrow can fear tomorrow just as vividly. Your ancestors survived by imagining everything that could go wrong before it happened. What if the herd changes direction? What if winter comes early? What if another tribe reaches the river first? That imagination became one of the greatest survival tools ever evolved. It also became a factory for suffering that never needed to exist. Unlike a deer grazing in a meadow, you don't need real danger nearby to feel fear. You can manufacture it, tonight, next week, 10 years from now, and your body will respond to a future that exists nowhere except inside your skull. That may be evolution's cruelest joke. The exact ability that let humanity conquer the planet is the same one that lets you be haunted by things that have never happened. Here's a mystery that follows naturally. Why do people feel anxious when everything is objectively fine? Warm home, enough food, people who care, no real threat in sight. And still the mind refuses to go quiet. Most assume this means something's broken. From an evolutionary standpoint, it's almost the opposite. Silence itself can look suspicious. Picture an ancient hunter who's had several unusually easy days. No predators, no injuries, no hunger. Would their brain conclude life was now permanently safe? Or would it get more alert, wondering what it had somehow failed to notice? Natural selection picked the second option every time, because the storm always seems to arrive right after the clearest skies, and the tribe that stops preparing is the one that finds out why preparation mattered. Evolution taught your brain one lesson above all the others. Never mistake peace for permanence. There's a final wrinkle worth sitting with. Your brain is remarkably bad at telling the difference between physical uncertainty and psychological uncertainty. For your ancestors, uncertainty usually meant something tangible. Today it arrives as an unanswered text, an interview with no result yet, test results still pending, a loved one running late. Nothing is physically threatening you. Your heart rate climbs anyway. Sleep gets harder anyway. Because to the ancient circuitry underneath your thoughts, uncertainty has only ever carried one instruction. Pay attention. The object has changed. The object changed. The instruction never did. Maybe that's why certainty has become one of the most profitable products in the modern world. Insurance sells certainty. Financial planning sells certainty. News channels perform certainty. Algorithms promise to predict it. Even conspiracy theories thrive here, not because they're accurate, but because a wrong answer often feels more bearable than no answer at all. Your brain would rather hold a flawed map than wander through open uncertainty with nothing. That single preference has quietly shaped religions, political movements, empires, and markets. We don't just seek truth. Often, we're seeking relief from not knowing, and we'll take it wherever we can get it. And here's the final irony. The harder humanity works to eliminate uncertainty, the more visible it seems to become. Stronger homes, safer roads, better medicine, global communication, machines that process more information than any human brain ever could. And still, one question refuses to leave the room. What if? What if I lose everything? What if I fail? What if tomorrow changes it all? Those questions aren't proof your brain is malfunctioning. They're echoes, carried forward from a world where asking them kept your ancestors alive long enough to have you. Which leads to one last realization. Maybe the deepest form of safety was never something evolution intended you to feel. Maybe it gave you something else instead. Not comfort, not certainty, but the strange ability to keep moving forward without either one. And that changes what courage actually means. Psychologists have run a version of this experiment for decades. Place a rat inside a perfectly safe enclosure. No predators, no hunger, no competition, comfortable temperature, food and water always available. By every measurable standard, this is the evolutionary dream. Permanent safety, delivered. So what happens? The novelty fades, and the animal doesn't settle into infinite contentment. It explores, climbs, investigates every corner. Not because it needs to survive anymore, because something in it demands engagement anyway. The nervous system was never built simply to preserve existence. It was built to interact with the world, and humans are no exception. For generations, we've assumed that removing every discomfort, every risk, every uncertainty would finally deliver happiness. Maybe we misread the assignment from the start. Maybe evolution never meant for us to eliminate uncertainty, only to get better at moving through it. Think about the moments that actually give your life meaning. Learning to walk, falling in love, starting a business, raising a child, crossing an ocean, standing in front of an audience with your voice shaking. None of those are safe. Every one of them carries the real possibility of failure, rejection, loss, embarrassment, pain. And yet they're the moments people remember most vividly, decades later, in perfect detail. Here's the paradox. The experiences that make life feel meaningful are often the exact experiences that make us feel least secure. That's probably not a coincidence. It might be the blueprint. Researchers studying well-being keep finding something almost contradictory. Past a certain point, more comfort and more material security stop moving the needle on long-term satisfaction. That doesn't mean safety is worthless. Food, shelter, healthcare, protection from violence are genuine, hard-won achievements. But once those foundations exist, the mind goes looking for something else. Not out of ingratitude. Because evolution solved one problem and, without pausing, started scanning for the next one. The brain doesn't have a finish line. It has horizons, and every horizon you reach reveals another one waiting just past it, which is exactly why boredom can feel unbearable. From the outside, boredom looks like laziness. Inside the brain, it's something closer to an alarm. For millions of years, boredom discouraged your ancestors from lingering in places offering no food, no mates, no information, no advantage. It had one instruction: move, explore, learn, adapt. That instruction is still running, quietly explaining why people scroll for hours and end up feeling worse, why comfort can curdle into restlessness, why abundance sometimes produces a strange, specific emptiness. Your brain isn't asking for more entertainment. It's asking for engagement. Those aren't the same request, even though they look almost identical from the outside. Modern civilization has done something no earlier generation could have believed possible. It measurably reduced the dangers that shaped human evolution. Better child survival, better medicine, more reliable food, less large-scale violence across much of the world. Extraordinary by any honest measure. But biology runs on a slower clock than civilization does. Evolution counts in thousands of generations. Technology counts in decades. The world changed faster than the nervous system reading it ever had a chance to. So the ancient machinery keeps working anyway, scanning, predicting, preparing, searching for danger, not because it failed to notice modern life, but because nobody ever gave it the order to stand down, which quietly turns an uncomfortable question into a useful one. Instead of, why can't I feel completely safe? Try asking, why did I expect to? No organism in the entire history of life has ever evolved under conditions of permanent certainty. Every living thing has existed inside shifting seasons, shifting landscapes, shifting risk. Humans aren't remarkable because we escaped uncertainty. We're remarkable because we learned to cooperate inside it, building families, villages, cities, science, medicine, art, not despite the uncertainty, but often because of it. Our greatest achievements are frequently just very elaborate responses to the exact dangers we were hoping to outrun. There's one more misconception worth dismantling before this ends. We tend to picture courage as the absence of fear. Anthropology tells a different story. The hunters who crossed frozen, unmapped land weren't fearless. The sailors who sailed past the edge of the known ocean weren't fearless. The scientists who challenged accepted truths at real personal cost weren't fearless either. They acted while the fear was still there, fully intact, doing its job the whole time. Maybe courage was never about feeling safe. Maybe it's simply refusing to let the search for total safety become the reason you stop living. Because if you wait for uncertainty to disappear first, you'll be waiting forever. It was never on its way out. Tonight, before you fall asleep, your brain will do what it has done every night for hundreds of thousands of years. Replay conversations. Rehearse futures. Flag unfinished problems. Search for patterns nobody asked it to look for. It isn't trying to rob you of rest. It's running the exact job evolution assigned it, long before the first city was ever built. You are carrying an ancient survival system through a modern world it was never briefed on. Sometimes it misreads the room. Sometimes it overreacts to an email like it's a predator. Sometimes it exhausts you for no visible reason. But without it, your ancestors never survived long enough for you to exist. And read this sentence. Maybe the greatest illusion of modern life isn't that the world became dangerous. It's that we quietly believe one day it will become completely safe. It won't. It never has. The future stays uncertain. The people you love stay vulnerable. Your plans keep meeting the unexpected, on schedule, forever. Life never promised guarantees. Only possibilities. And maybe that's exactly what makes it worth anything at all. Certainty ends stories. Uncertainty is what keeps writing them. Your brain was never built to rest inside perfect safety. It was built to walk into an uncertain world, watch, adapt, create, and keep moving anyway. That restless feeling you sometimes carry, the quiet voice that keeps asking what if, isn't proof something in you is broken. It's one of the oldest echoes evolution ever produced. A signal carried across a few 100,000 years, reminding you that your ancestors didn't survive by conquering uncertainty. They survived by learning to live inside it. And maybe the deepest peace available to you was never found in uncertainty disappearing, but in finally understanding that it was never the enemy to begin with. It was the force that built you.